Hey everyone, thank you for checking into Jamie TV. Today is going to be the final episode in a series of videos that wasn't meant to be a series. It started out with an episode that was just meant to be a standalone video really. I was just trying to explain how you can use MIDI very effectively with Rusemaker Noir in Cubasis. But that resulted in me kind of coming up with a groove that I really liked. And so I did an episode 2 where I got my cigar box guitar out and I put some grooves down so it went from there. And so I did another episode for bass and one for mandolin, one for banjo, etc, etc. And so now all that remains for me to do is to kind of finalize it and mix it and all that stuff. Now I'm not going to do a video where I film the entire mix because that would be a very long, very boring video, but I am going to share with you some of the bits I'm good at, I suppose, and some interesting things as I go along with this process, hopefully. I'm just going to make a start here by just getting a very rough mix together, just so I can hear whether I feel that, you know, the track does have everything present that needs to be there, and just make sure it's going to sound nice and full, see if there's anything missing. Okay, I think there's plenty going on there. I think we're going to have a piece here that sounds nice and full. There's plenty going on. At this point though in recording, when like all the parts are done, when all the actual recording is done and you start to listen to it from a new point of view, like you're getting stuck into the mixing, you start to hear it in a different light, and at the moment to me it all sounds like a bit of a cacophony. It sounds like a bit of a mess. So let's get stuck into sorting out some individual sounds. I'm going to start off by taking a look at the sounds from Rusemaker and see what we can make of that. Before I get stuck into dealing with the individual sounds, I'm just going to show you a very quick Cubasis 3 tip. It's one of the great features of Cubasis 3 that wasn't in Cubasis 2. One of the great new features that actually works. I'm going to set up a group track for my drums. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select track 3 because I want my group track to appear just below my drums. I've only got 3 tracks of drums at the moment. They're all coloured in red because drums are red. And so I want my group channel to be below those. So I've selected 3, and that means that when I go down here and press add and select group, the group track will appear directly below them. And now what it's asking me to do is to select the tracks that I want to go to the group track. So I'm going to select 1, 2 and 3. As you can see, they're all coloured in red because they are drums, right? And there's a little noir icon next to each one, which is very cool. I can just click off that now, and those 3 tracks are going to the group track. Now this group track needs to be red because it's drums, so I'm just going to go here, change the colour of that, and then select up here and type in drums. There we go. Okay, so now we have a group track for drums, which can be very, very helpful when you're mixing. I'm just going to go to the mixer now, and if I press play on my drums, there we are. one fader for all the drums. Can be really useful when mixing. Another thing I'll show you actually while we're at the mixer, something I'm always forgetting to use myself because I'm so used to Cubasis 2, is we can change the size of the faders on the mixing desk. So just here, look, it's set to middle sized. We can go, if you've got a project where you just got a few tracks, you might as well have nice big fat faders. So XL, it's like a t-shirt size. XL for nice big fat faders, and of course they're not all going to fit on screen here, so you'd have to scroll left and right with the fat faders. Middle sized, I think that's the same as Cubasis 2, but if we go to small, see, for me, I tend to do projects that do include a load of instruments, and so when I'm mixing, this is actually really helpful for me when I remember to use it. I can just get more on the screen without scrolling side to side all the time. Okay, now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go up here and I'm going to mute the snare and the hats and show you something. I'm going to be perfectly honest about this. Let me play the kick drum for you. Now, I really like this kick drum sound. I think it's kind of like it's a bit like an 808 kind of a sound. It's from Roosmaker Noir. I really like the sound of it, but I've got to be totally honest, I am totally inexperienced at mixing sounds like this. Now normally what I would do at this point is I would start going through my drums and get a really cool sound on each drum, one by one, starting with the kick, and then I'd get a real nice sound on each drum sound going to my group track, and then I'd start to work through all the other instruments one by one, get a cool sound on each one, accepting that as I achieve a really cool sound for each instrument, it may need to change further to sit in the mix right, but I just find that's the way to work. Get a really cool sound on each instrument and then go back and start to adapt everything slightly to sit in the mix. Alright, so I'm wobbling on here, but my point is, normally at this point I'd be working on the kick, but I'm not sure what to do with this kick, so I'm going to leave that. I'm going to end up leaving it while last, because I'm not sure how that kind of a sound is going to sit with real bass guitar. So I'm going to leave that and move on to the snare. What I'm about to say could come back to bite me, so please, if you're watching this video, please check the date that it was published, because it might be that you're watching it at a later date and Steinberg have actually got their act together and sorted Cubasis 3 out and actually made it ready for sale. Because the fact is that right now it's still very unstable if you use too many AUV3s. There's a couple that just send it absolutely crazy, and it seems that it really can't handle that many. Less than Cubasis 2 by a long way, I'm sure. Now, I'm about to try and get a really cool sound on my snare, so what I'm going to say is there are a number of different AUV3s, different plugins, different things I could use to help me shape the sound of this snare. But I'm going to use Cubasis 3's internal channel strip, because I believe it will do the job, and if something internal works, use it. So I'm going to click on internal effects here and open up the channel strip, and I'm just going to make this bigger on the screen so you can see it a bit better. Now play the snare. Now I currently have each section of the channel strip bypassed, and I'm going to unbypass them one at a time and get a sound. I'm going to use this filter to just reduce a little bit of that fizzy top end to the sound. Not too much, I don't want to lose the clarity, and I think we could lose a little low end as well. Now the noise gate is going to be the most important thing with this sound, because there's a long tail on it. Now, you'll hear that noise gate's completely cut off that tail. and a little too much so. So all I'm going to do, I'm going to bring down the threshold a little bit. I want some of it back, but not all of it. Maybe something around there. Let's just compare. Yeah, I think that does it. Now, compressor. Now that's just crushing the hell out of that sound. I'm going to take this threshold up here. That's starting to sound better. And bring down the attack. Fast attack, I think, for this sound. Maybe a longer release. Now you can hear already we've shaped that sound quite drastically. It's got more body, it's less messy sounding. It just has more impact and punch. Now a little saturation, I think. Bringing up the high end there to put in some bite now that we've lost that fizz. And you know what? I think that's there. Okay, I'm going to be completely honest here. I was just messing around with the hi-hat sound. Of course, it's not really a hi-hat sound. It's a sound that Noir made that I heard and I thought, well, that'd make a really great synthetic kind of hi-hat sound. And since I very first heard it, I really, really liked it. But I'm going to be completely honest, I've just been messing around with it. And what I did was I opened Cubasis 3's channel strip to start messing around and try to find just the right perfect sound for it. And what I did was, well, I'm going to show you. I'll show you. So we'll open up the channel strip, and a lot of production people would sneer at me for this, but I don't care. So what I've done is I went to factory presets and clicked on hi-hat as a starting point, and I could not change the settings in any way that made it sound any better than just that preset that comes with Cubasis 3. So I'm going to be totally honest, this sound is not down to me, this is just a preset. So let's just play it for you without the with the channel strip off. Right, so this is the sound, which I really, really like. Okay, well, let's bring the channel strip back in. And that's just perfect. I'm not going to touch that. What I am going to do is I'm going to open something that I don't use enough. Something I really like, but it's kind of something that works with the kind of music that's not the kind of music that I make a lot, but I'm going to open stereo filter 1. So we're going to audio units, and I'm looking for SF1. Now this is a wonderful, wonderful filter. There are a number of these kinds of filters. There's a lot of good ones, but this one I particularly like. I think I'm kind of swayed a little bit by the fact that the interface just looks beautiful. And watch this. This is a really cool thing. If I adjust the size of it, it moves itself around to best suit the dimensions of the space that you put it in. Look at that. That's really, really cool. So of course, if I just press full screen, awesomeness. Anyway, yeah, I think I'm kind of swayed by the fact that the interface just looks so wonderful. But it sounds great too. So we're going to have a mess around with a few presets in this, and let's just see what it can do. Here's a few examples. It sounds cool. It's not for my track, but it sounds cool. I like it. Oh, no, that sounds close. That sounds close to the kind of thing I want. This one's really, really cool, but it kind of does my head in with the headphones on as well. It kind of... This one's insane. I don't play with this enough. That's just crackers. Actually, I really, really like this one. That's pretty close to what I want for my track. So you know what, it might sound like a bit of a cop-out, but with those two presets, I've got something very, very close to what I want, so I'm just going to leave that like that. And then when we come to the actual mix, I'm gonna play around with them some more maybe. But what we really, really need to make the drums sound awesome now is we need some awesome reverb. And for this, I'm going to try this little beauty, because this is a reverb that when I first bought it, I thought it's got some fantastic mad sounds in it, but I only seem to be able to make crazy sounds with it, synthetic sounds and things that are great for atmospheres and instrumental stuff maybe, but maybe not so much for your sort of regular instruments. But I think this is going to work really well on here, and I'm going to start with one of my favorite sounds. It's just a preset I really, really like. And again, you know, I think I'm going to leave that like that. Let's just make it a little less wet. Okay, let's see what that's like for the snare. You know what, while we're here, let's introduce a little bit of panning. Let's see. Take the snare a little to the left, take the hats a little to the right. Okay, that's starting to sound really pretty good, pleasing to my ears anyway. You see, what I'm driving for here is I wanted the old school real instruments, the cigar box guitar, the banjo, the mandolin, and the bass guitar, blended with this very sort of lo-fi, sci-fi, futuristic, synthetic drum sound. I don't know as yet whether it's going to work, but we better get on with it. Let's see. Musically, I built this track around the cigar box guitar part, so it seemed logical to me to get a sound for the cigar box guitar part that sits nice with the drums and progress from there. Now, I ended up feeling a bit stupid actually. If you've watched all the videos in the series, if you saw the one where I recorded the cigar box guitar, you'll know that I built myself a preset for the cigar box guitar using Numbrini's PSA 1000 Junior, a sound which was really just kind of rough to get me going, But as I've gone along recording this track, I've remained happy with that sound. And so I thought, well, you know what, that sits nice with the drums. I'll just show you. I'm happy with that, so I thought I'm going to keep that sound and I'm going to just add some compression. So I opened up a compressor, and this is where I ended up feeling real stupid, because I'm playing with the compressor and I thought, I can't make it sound any better. In fact, I'm making it sound worse. So I found that the only way that I wasn't making it sound worse was if I turned the compressor down so low that it actually wasn't doing anything. So I switched it off and I thought, you're an idiot, right? Because I'm always telling people, don't get into a routine. Don't just add plugins. Don't just add things, presets and stuff that you're used to using, that you always use. Treat each instrument in every individual track, on a individual basis. Use your ears, listen, think about what it does need, then add, and experiment with different things. And there I was, just trying to add a compressor, because usually on an instrument like this I would add a compressor. And when I thought about it, I thought, you know what, the PSA 1000 is it's overdriving this instrument, it's saturating it, and if you listen to it on its own, all the highs and lows are close together. The peaks and troughs are already brought together. It already sounds really even. It doesn't need a compressor. So, I feel like a bit of a stupid old hippie, but there we are. I've reminded myself of my own lesson. So I've ended up, all I've done is I've added a little cleaverb to it. Now, Clevergrand's cleaverb is one of the best things that I've bought. I am so happy with this reverb. Now, some people have said to me in iPad Musician and groups like that on Facebook that there are better reverbs. And the thing is to me, a reverb, like many plugins, is kind of like an instrument in itself. I like the sound of it. Some reverbs kind of just add reverb, like delays. Some delays just add delay and don't particularly colour the sound. You could say the same for compressors. But this reverb does very much colour the sound. But it's a coloration that I really, really like. I think if you make, hip-hop or EDM, which genres I'm no expert on, so please forgive me, if I'm speaking out of turn, but I think you probably want very clean, crisp reverbs. But if you make rock or guitar-based stuff, or you're wanting that much more old school kind of a sound, cleaverb, if you add that on a few real audio instruments, and you start to make your track sound very, very vintage and very warm. Anyway, yes, I really like it. What I'm going to do, let me just solo that track for you again, and then I'm going to switch the cleaverb off and you'll see. Now, I've not got tons of it on, it's quite subtle. You'll notice it more because I switch it off. And I bought that when I was absolutely broke, but I don't regret it. It's worth every penny. If you've seen my videos before, you may know that although I do play a number of different instruments, my main instrument, my real first love, is the bass guitar. And you may already know that my main bass, the super bass, has two outputs. It has multiple pickups. And what I like to do when I record most things is to record both the neck pickup and the middle pickup. Now, the reason I do that is because I find that making bass guitar sit right in a track, which of course is something that I'm very passionate about, is one of the hardest things to do, because if you're a bass player, you want all your notes to be heard, but you know, if you're also trying to mix the track so that it makes sense as a piece, not just as something that sort of just demonstrates how well you can play your bass, you don't want it to be too loud, right? So making it sit just right, and it's the same in a live environment. What I've found is if I use my neck pickup, which is a nice, fat, warm sound without too much definition on it, I can use that pickup to give me all the balls, all the girth that it needs. And then the split coil pickup in the middle is the one that will give me the bite that I really like, that will make it cut through. And balancing those two things, I've managed to make a fairly decent job of getting the balance just right. So let me just play you. Here is the neck pickup. Right, so not much clarity, not much definition, but plenty of oomph. And then here's the split coil pickup. It's like a P-bass style pickup. And that's where I get my definition. So let's have a look at getting some plugins on these, and let's just see what we can make of the bass sound. So we'll go with, a feature of Cubasis 3 I could mention. One thing I really like, one thing that works, is if I, on the mixer, press here, look, on my low bass, it moves low bass within view in this little space above the mixer. Although of course, another thing I forget to use a lot actually in Cubasis 3 is when mixing, we can drag the mixer out and have a full window of mixer. Right, okay, so let's go to the lower bass sound, the neck pickup, and we're going to insert an audio unit, and we're going to have here Rough Rider 3. Now, we've been blessed on iOS with lots of very cheap and often free plugins, and of all the free plugins, Rough Rider 3's got to be up there with the best. It's an absolutely wonderful compressor. Let's just see what we can do with it on this track. There we can hear it kicking in much more aggressively. We'll use makeup to bring the volume up a little. Not too much, we don't want to... There, it's sounding very, very present. Maybe slightly less attacking. I don't want it to pump too hard for this track. Yeah, I think that's pretty close. Now, let's also use the very, very excellent bass equalizer from Numbrini. We don't need any top end on this pickup because we're going to get all that from the other pickup. All we want here is some proper girth. When you're mixing bass, if you look around here in the mids, you'll find that there's a frequency that makes it poke. There. Okay. There. Now we've got a very girthy, very present sound. Alright, so let's have a look at the higher pickup. Right, and let's start off by adding, let's see, we'll use the same EQ. One of the great things, of course, about AUV3 is that you can use multiples of the same plugin and have completely different settings on each one. So let's have Nembrini's equalizer again. I hope that Nembrini are going to do more things for bass, because they've made a stunning job of doing this. Right, now we don't need any of the low. And the very top frequency we really don't need, because all the bass does in that frequency is a nasty fizz. We really just don't want that. Higher mids is what we're looking for. Now, you see, this may on its own sound a bit pants. Oh, there, that frequency. There we go. Now, okay. Now, on its own, that may sound a bit pants, but I've learned from experience that this is what works. You'll see what I mean in a moment. Right. And we're also going to add a little dirt to the bass. And this is another thing that I do live as well, is I have two signals, I have two amps, and only the top one is dirty. So the bottom amp can be just clean, power, punchy, and then I dial in some dirt and just those higher frequencies from the top amp. Blending the two things live helps me again to get that sound that will help me cut through the band but not be too loud, which is a classic bass player problem. Can't speak today. Right, okay, now more from Nembrini. We're going to use the PSA 1000 Junior again, if I can find it. Where can I find it? There we are. Right, PSA 1000 Junior. Okay, play. Right, something I want to mention. Okay, now I'm always going on about the Focusrite iTrack dock, which if you've seen my videos, you'll see that I use all the time. When I got this, I could not believe how cheap it was for how good it is. The inputs on it are incredibly high quality, and it does exactly what I wanted it to do. I'm not saying that this is, the interface for everybody, but for me, this works wonderfully well. However, it does have one flaw. It has a couple of other flaws actually, but minor things for me, minor niggles. But the main problem is, and quite a lot of people who have one have spoken about this online, it has some background noise. And it's intermittent. It's not always there, and you don't always notice it when you're recording. Here is a situation where it becomes apparent later, and I'll explain that in a minute. But it seems to be when your battery is fully charged, because of course the dock charges your iPad whilst it's sat in there. which is really the main thing that attracted me to it in the first place. You know, just because so many people have problems with, you know, adapters and getting the right adapters so that they can plug in and charge whilst also using an interface and get their instruments in there and so on and so on. And it's great that it charges whilst you're using it, but it seems to be that when your iPad is fully charged, then this little background noise appears, and if you're not careful, you can pick that up when you're recording. Now, of course, I've recorded bass guitar and I've not noticed it, right? And now that I'm working on the split coil pickup, it's noticeable. It's a background noise, but because I'm boosting those higher frequencies and adding some overdrive, that interference has started to come in. So this is a bit of an issue with the dock. It's hard to kind of, you know, if you're doing a long recording session, it's hard to kind of try and make sure that you've always not got full battery when you record. I mean, it's a bind. But anyway, so fortunately for this track, I don't need a lot of gain on the bass. Some tracks I use quite a lot, but for this I want a more old school kind of a sound, just a bit dirty, that's all. So we may just get away with that noise. If we don't, obviously I'll have to re-record the bass, but for now let's just press on with getting this sound. So if you can hear that annoying background sound because I've got it soloed, my apologies. Okay, learning from my earlier mistake, two things here. That sounds very, very even. It doesn't sound like it needs compression. Now, I'm a big fan of compression on bass, but I don't want to add compression here just because I normally would, because experience of working with compressors, compression is going to make that background interference stand out more. What I'm going to have to do with this is we're going to have to see in the mix, can we hear that noise? And if we can, I will re-record the bass. But for now we press on. So what I'll do is I'm just going to show you quickly how this balancing the two bass sounds works in the mix. So let's go to mixer and take solos off and press play. That's the thing. Right, so I'm bringing in the low. Add in the high, so you can hear we've got the balls, you can't really hear the notes. And there, you can start to define the notes. Okay, I'm not hearing that background noise too badly at the moment, so maybe cross fingers will be okay. My Pilgrim mandolin has a pickup on board which sounds really nice, so when I recorded the mandolin, I recorded the internal pickup, and I also used this NT1A microphone just so far away from me to pick up kind of a roomy sort of a sound. Now, I'm not massively experienced mixing mandolin. I'm not massively experienced playing it. You know, I've recorded it a few times, and the best results I've had previously have been with Waves audio tracks. So I'm going to start there. Don't have any preconceived ideas of how I'm going to do it, but what I want is the mandolin actually can have a surprising amount of mid-range. So I'm going to try and make sure we cut some of that out, because on this track we've got bass guitar for the lows, then we've got cigar box guitar and banjo, which are both very middly instruments. So I'm relying on the mandolin to cover a higher frequency. So I want to make sure I've got all that mid out of it, so that I can push it in those higher frequencies without it clashing. So I don't know exactly how I'm gonna EQ it, so I'll just do it. Just watch and learn with me, hopefully. And if it all goes pear-shaped, just laugh at me. That's cool. I can't hear you. Drop me a comment, you know, laughing face or something. Okay, so go to start the track and open Waves audio track. Right, let's start with some compression, because it's may very well be my plane, but there's lots of highs and lows in this, so let's bring down that threshold a little. Is that too hard? That's too hard. I don't want to kill it. There, that's nice. It's squashed, but it's breathing. A bit more release. Too much. Yeah, I think that's okay. Right. See, that's mids. What I'm going to do, I'm going to bring this to about here, I think. There we are. Drop them out. Now we want to find that nice rich frequency that it has and emphasize that. Too tinny. Seems to be about 1K. Start track again. Yeah, around there somewhere. No, too much. Okay, and bring some more clarity in without being too tinny. Okay, I think that's okay for the direct input. Right, now the NT1, it's a very different sound. Maybe we'll use a different plugin for this, but let's just see. Actually, you know, a bit more volume to work with. That seems to stand a little more compression. Now the ratio's up, it's a bit much. lose some attack. That's better. That's breathing, but more squash. Yeah, okay. Right, let's see if a similar thing works here. On the EQ. There's more middle on this one. The middle is more honky on this mic. Oh yeah, there we are. Not too tinny. Okay, now let's hear a blend of the two. Oh, no, hang on, that's banjo. What are you doing, you stupid hippie? I'm just going to send them left and right. Probably not going to mix them like this, but... See, with the mixture of the two, you've got more warmth, more depth, and more clarity. It's slightly similar to the bass. Okay, let's add a bit of reverb. Some cleaver. Doesn't take much for the mandolin, does it? Oops, wrong reverb. Hang on a minute. Okay. Alright. Hang on, I've still got the banjo in there. I knew there was something wrong. There we go. That's better. Okay, I think that sounds pretty good for now. Let's have a look at some banjo. Apologies at this point. Camera number 3 seems to have crapped out and died. It's as if it killed itself rather than be used by me anymore. I'm not sure what's going on with it. I hope I'm going to be able to rescue the footage from it. But at this point, you're not going to have to look at me anymore. You'll just have to listen to me. When I say third camera, it's an old iPhone that I use to record me talking whilst using my current iPhone to record the iPad screen, and I use screen record on the iPad to capture the audio and what's going on the iPad screen. I did have a better third eye device for talking to, but then my daughter's iPhone crapped out, and so she claimed that one. And I'm just far too generous. I just let her have it. So anyway, right. So at this point, I've had a listen through each individual instrument again, and I'm happy to go ahead with doing a mix now. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix this on headphones, and I don't normally mix on headphones because I just don't think I'm very good at it, but having my speakers on and talking to you on a microphone is problematic anyway, and it will produce a better quality sound for the video if I use headphones. So I'm going to be extremely brave now. Actually, before we do that, just if you look at the screen now, this is the whole project. So all we have is 11 tracks, and you have to bear in mind that 2 are bass, 2 are mandolin, and 2 are banjo, and it's each one of these, that's the same performance, just recorded. The bass is recorded from 2 different pickups, and the mandolin is recorded direct and with the NT1 mic, and the banjo is recorded with the SM57 and the NT1. So really what we're looking at here is 3 tracks of percussion on a group track here, a cigar box guitar, a bass, a mandolin, and a banjo. So the idea was to try to sit each instrument in its own frequency and make it sound full without having to have too many instruments. So what I'm going to do, oh, and yeah, the other thing I wanted to mention was we've started to have the odd glitch, even though there aren't many tracks involved here and not that many AUV3s. Cubasis 3 is already starting to struggle. Now I could counter that by you see, I've still got Noir open 3 times here, and I'm using the MIDI to trigger Noir on all 3 tracks still. And what I could do is I could render these 3 tracks to audio and then close out Noir, and that would save a bit of CPU for Cubasis 3. But I'm currently busy comparing Cubasis 3 to Cubasis 2, comparing exact same projects from one to the other to see how each one copes. And I'm sad to report that Cubasis 2 is winning. So this is just part of my testing process. I want to see if we're going to be able to get that to the end of this recording without rendering these to audio. So let's go to the mixer and be extremely brave now, because I have a mix that's fairly close, I think, and for the purposes of this video I am going to pull everything down except for, I'll leave the group track fader up, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to get stuck into the mix and play around with it, and let you have a listen to how I tackle that. And I did some rough estimation of panning on these. I'll just center those as well, or more or less center them. It would be nice if there was a way of like double clicking and centering these, or typing in an amount. Actually, you can do. You can do. I didn't know you could do that. We just found that out live. Okay, cool. I learned something too. Right. Okay, so I'm just going to play the track and keep playing the track, and I'm going to mix, and hopefully we'll come up with something that sounds all right. Now the main instrument that all this is based on is the cigar box guitar, so let's get that nice and prominent. Notice once again how I use the neck pickup on the bass, the one that just sounds kind of low and just solid bass, no definition, to fill out the bass end of the mix, but you can't hear defined notes, and then I will introduce the other bass at some point to try and get the definition. Although Cubasis 3, like Cubasis 2, although the stereo out is not the most fantastic indicator of exactly what your levels are, I've noticed that we're getting pretty high on that meter there. So what I'm going to do, I decided that I was going to build everything around the cigar box guitar in terms of mix. That was going to be the center of it. So I've brought the volume of that down, and I'm now going to try and match everything to that. Alright, that's sounding pretty close to me. One point I thought I'd just mention that just occurred to me there while I was mixing was sometimes when I record an instrument with two microphones or two different kinds of inputs, what I might do is I might mix one quite loud to somewhere in the sonic spectrum and the other one a little quieter to a quite different place. But another way of approaching it is to use them in exactly the same space in the stereo, you know, wherever you place them in the stereo picture. Use them in exactly the same place, but use one for one sound and one for another. So whereas the NT1 on the banjo sounds very roomy and the other one is a more direct and punchy sound, balancing the two things in the same place makes the sound of one instrument but quite full and complete. Whereas if you're looking for a much kind of spread out bigger production kind of a sound, then placing them in different places in the spectrum is quite effective. And I tend to do that more than I do recording the same part again. You know, the way that a lot of people, if they were recording an acoustic guitar part, they might record it once and pan it to one side and then record it again, trying to play it exactly the same and pan it to the other side of the picture, and the variations between the two performances hopefully make it sound bigger. But I like to try to record as few instruments as possible, but at the same time making it sound full by thinking very carefully about what frequencies I'm playing in and how the parts are going to knit together. I mean, to me this sounds really, really full, even though there are not many instruments on it, and that's pleasing to my ears. That's just my, you know, way I like to do things. Alright, so I need to listen to this through my speakers now, because I'm not confident about my ability to mix on headphones. So I'm just gonna switch the mic off and end this bit of video and do that, and then I'm going to come back and talk to you. I've had a listen to the mix now through my studio speakers, and I've given it a further little tweak. I was surprised. I'm not so much. I'm not very confident mixing on headphones. I've always used my studio speakers, and I'm very confident with them. I know how they sound, But just recently I've been using headphones a little bit more, and it's something I need to get used to it, that's all. But Cubasis 3 behaved. It did glitch a little bit while I was listening to the track back, getting the mix just finalized, but I've rendered it now, I've mixed it down, and I've listened to that back, and that's absolutely fine. So what I'm going to do, I think I'm pretty happy with it now, so I'm going to let that sit. I'll come back and listen to it tomorrow with fresh ears, and if I'm still happy with it, then I will master it. Now, I'm not massively confident with mastering. I get results eventually, but it's not something I'm superb at. I don't think. I've still got a lot to learn. It's kind of still a bit of a black art to me. So I made a decision a while ago. I wasn't going to talk about mastering in these videos until I've got something to say, till I know what I'm on about, you know? The thing about these videos is I always feel that when I do one of these videos, like a series of videos where I go through a full production from the first idea to writing it and recording all the instruments and everything, I always kind of feel like the last video is going to be the boring one, right? Where we're mixing, and it's going to be a bit long and drawn out, and that bothers me. But you know, it's a necessary part of the process. It's just not the part of it that I find most exciting, I guess, you know. And it's difficult to make a sort of, you know, shiny, happy, singing, exciting video about mixing. But I hope it's been of use to at least somebody out there, because I actually like watching other people mix, because I find that even if you're watching somebody mix who's maybe not even as experienced at it as you are, there's often something to learn. Speaking about making these videos, I really enjoy making videos about mobile music production because it's something that I'm very passionate about. But I think I need to change up the way I'm doing it, because I just I'm not getting, I love doing it, but I'm just not getting the attention for it that I want more attention. So I'm going to change up the way I do things, I think. I don't think I'm going to make any more of these very long videos where I go through the full process of making a track, because it just doesn't honestly seem to be capturing people's attention enough. So if you have any thoughts about that, any tips, suggestions, thoughts about anything that I do with my videos, then please do feel free to comment, whether it be good, bad or indifferent. I have very broad shoulders, you will not upset me, so just say what you think. So, you know, if this video has been of any use to you, if it was at least reasonably interesting, then please do give me a like and a sub maybe. And if you feel particularly frisky, please do ding my bell. If you'd like to contact me about anything at all, if I can help you with anything, then my email address is down below the video for a reason, as is my web address if you want to find out anything about the solo material that I release, the bands that I play for. Also on my website is my store, because I just recently released a new single called New Attitude, and there's some new merchandise on there for that. If you would like to make a little donation to help out the channel, because I'm a full-time pro musician, and at the moment we're still in lockdown, so I actually have no work. There's a paypal.me thingy down there, and and my Patreon account, of course. My Patreon account, there is stuff that is exclusive and not available anywhere else. So if you'd like to maybe check that out, you can sign up for that for as little as £1, euro, dollar, shitter, whatever per month. So thank you very much for watching. You may follow me on any social media you like. The details are all down below. So all of you, Take care of yourselves, behave yourselves, stay safe and be good, and I'll see you again.